Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was asked the very question that was just raised in a super chat a few moments ago about support for Israel, given we are already supporting Ukraine. Neoliberalism is oriented in a way such that we're supposed to be skeptical of all this government spending, except, of course, when it comes to the military. But Yellen was asked, hey, can we afford to basically finance two wars at the same time? Here's what she had to say.
Paul Tudor Jones, the famed investor, was on CNBC this week, and he said, "This is the most threatening and challenging geopolitical environment that I've ever seen. At the same time, the US is in its weakest fiscal position since World War II, with debt to GDP at 122%. Can America, can the West afford another war at this time?"
I think the answer is absolutely. America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs. And we also can and must support Ukraine in its struggle against Russia. And look, the American economy is doing extremely well.
Can we afford two wars at once? Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, we can. Absolutely, we can. It feels like decades ago, but it was actually only 4 years ago that many of us were trying to get excited for the 2020 Democratic primary. We were still hoping that Bernie could pull it off, right? But if you remember, during that primary season, the entire Democratic Party, the entire media, was all in on the message that any spending above Trump level spending basically was off the table. Here's Amy Klobuchar in 2019 at a town hall being asked if she supports tuition-free 4-year college, the price tag of which, by the way, $60 billion a year, 60, as opposed to the 100 and some odd billion we've already sent to Ukraine, 880 billion that goes to the Pentagon every year. Here she is being asked, can we send people to 4-year colleges for free? Here's her answer.
Support free college for all?
I am not for free 4-year college for all. No. Thank you.
So let me ask you.
That kid looks like he's going to cry.
And I wish if I was a magic genie and could give that to everyone and we could afford it, I would. I'm just trying to find a mix of incentives. And
if I were a magic genie and I could find $60 billion a year for free college tuition, I would. But I can't. Now we're being asked, hey, can we finance two wars at the same time? Absolutely. Hey, come on. Well, I said this on RBN. We talked about this on RBN last week or this week. How do you root for this country at this point? I mean, just look at how ridiculous a country this is. Look at how unworthy a country this is that you have. Well, that was one clip. You all heard it. You all remember for a year, every single thing that could have helped give someone a hand up who needed it, whether it's medical debt relief, student debt relief, tuition-free college, a public health care option, anything, even a $15 minimum wage, not exactly the same thing since that doesn't come out of the Treasury, but, well, how are you going to pay for that? The guy says, hey, wait a minute, Ukraine and Israel, both wars at the same time? How are you going to pay for that? Easy. What are you, stupid? The economy's doing great. We got money. What's money? Just embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, when you look at this, it's one of those things. It's hard to see how dirty the pool is when you're in the water, right? If you really just take a step back, it's so obvious that this is an aristocracy / oligarchy / kleptocracy calling itself a democracy. For many decades after Rome had become an empire with an emperor, they called themselves a republic because there was an emotive quality, that it gave the government legitimacy to call itself a republic. That was an ideal of this society. That's the effect of our democracy. And they still had elections for senators, but the emperor had absolute power, so the senators were meaningless at that point. It was just a ritual. It was just a show. That's what we have. Our government is a show. It's a show. It's a veneer. It creates an illusion that we still have this democracy because there's this emotive quality to calling it that. But it's not that. It's not that. It's run by corporations. It's run by the military-industrial complex. It's run by Wall Street, and we're peasants. And they feed you this American pride and patriotism shit to try to keep you in line. That's wearing very thin. And I was talking to the same person I was talking to about if this war breaks out in the Middle East. Was talking, about the invincibility of the United States. I said, do you know the United States military is, I think, over 25% under on their recruitment because it's a nation of fat people with diabetes. They can't find enough people who even qualify to fight in the military.
A larger part of
it's part of it.
The bigger problem is this. The bigger problem is this. The bigger problem is that nobody wants to fight for the country anymore because no one has any reason to believe in the country anymore.
It's part of it. But even when they go out and try to recruit, they can't find enough people who qualify.
Yeah, but I mean, the reason why they're having that drain is because of this.
Sure.
It's because it's an empire in decline and the writing is on the wall.
Right. But my point is, even if you turned around and had a draft, you've got a population that's not physically fit enough.
That's not stopping the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are just dragging everybody off. They're taking 50, 60-year-olds. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, you're in. You know what I mean? The ball's yours. But on the other question, so that was, the Yellen piece of this is sort of the economic question. But then the part that Russell's actually talking about was addressed by President Biden himself on 60 Minutes when he got basically the same question. And here's his answer.
Are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time?
We're the United States of America, for God's sake. The most powerful nation in the history, not in the world, in the history of the world.
See, this is what I mean.
The history of the world.
This is the guy you
we
got
can
here
take care of
it.
both of these and still maintain our overall international defense. We have the capacity to do this, and we have an obligation to. We are the essential nation, to Paris, for
Man,
the former Secretary of State.
He's really going fast.
And if we don't, who does?
Oh, we're the United States of America, for Christ's sake. Of course we can do it. We're the most powerful nation on earth. Once again, this guy, just like Amy Klobuchar, spent the entire year campaigning, talking about all the things we could not do because it was too expensive, and we just didn't have it together, right? Reminding us of all the high price tags of universal health care and green reform and things like that. And whatever everybody feels about those individual issues on the merits, certainly the obstacle was not cost, right? But now when it comes time to sell two wars, neither of which are of any national interest to us whatsoever, they're only going to ignite a global conflict that's going to get many people killed. And by many people, I mean a double-digit percentage of the world population, potentially. Now, all of a sudden, hey, we can do anything. We could do anything as long as it's incredibly destructive.
Right. Well, because that is what benefits them and their class. I mean, they don't. This is why they no longer have legitimacy, because they've become so transparent about their intentions and who they serve. What is in this for the public? What is in this for the people? And it does seem like they're moving towards this. You will own nothing and be happy.
Of course.
Right? Nobody can afford a house.
Of course.
People can't afford a house anymore. So what does that mean? Everybody becomes a renter.
Right.
Under the boot of not even a mom and pop landlord. And things are moving towards permanent capital taking over all of this housing stock. They're going into all these places and buying up these distressed properties and becoming landlords. And because they're such big corporations, they're horrible landlords. They're completely unaccountable. They handle being landlords the same way they handle everything else. Minimize costs, maximize profits. So
absolutely.
What does that mean? Put off fixing the plumbing as long as possible.
Please clap.